Hey everyone, Red here, and if you like to punish survivors for bringing items into your games, I have the build just for you, so let's get into it. Discordance is our information perk, which is already going off, meaning at least 2 survivors are on that gen. This perk allows us to stop gens from being immediately done, and since the only slowdown perk I'm running this game is Thanatophobia, we're gonna need to make sure there are no insta-pops early game. Franklin's Demise is the star perk, as it allows us to make survivors drop their items on a basic hit. This means Legion's power unfortunately does not work with this, but that's alright. Overwhelming Presence will make survivors in our terror radius consume their item twice as fast. This combos well with our add-on Iridescent Button. An Iridescent Button makes our terror radius global during our Frenzy. Frenzy works well here as it's a great power for detecting nearby survivors along with keeping a team injured. When paired up with Iridescent Head though, the global terror radius can really throw survivors off guard and even make them walk into more advantageous positions for myself. This is actually a very strong loop if it's ran correctly, so I have to be careful in the sense that I don't want to waste too much time here as I have decent pressure generated and I don't want to lose that or let that be a waste. And we have our first item of the game. While Franklin's allows us to knock it out of their hands and damage it a little bit, it also acts as a stalling mechanic because 90% of the survivor player base is gonna come back for their items. This is time not spent on gens. Also, it just feels really good to say no to the items. Now, because I'm not running barbecue and chili or any other information perks other than discordance, I have to rely on past information gained. Since the first gen I had seen had quite a lot of progress on it, it's not a bad idea to check that out. And if discordance isn't going off now, I know I have plenty of time to patrol properly without the fear of fast popping gens. Also, Nancy is just kind of unluckers. While Nancy doesn't have luck on her side today, she was totally going back for her original item. By the way, since I haven't mentioned it yet, every survivor this round has brought a medkit. I want to get the most out of my power as possible to keep survivors injured for Thanatophobia, and it also benefits for Franklin's Demise. That way when I do get my basic attack for Franklin's, I'm also downing them, which means I can go ahead and hook them away from the item, and when they get unhooked I will know immediately where they're going to go, which is obviously to go back and get their item. You know, I really need to make a pop-up for every time Dead Hard works on me. Well, Claudette can go ahead and say goodbye to her medkit, and I can go ahead and hook her since discordance is off and healing is going on. Remember, when you're playing memey builds like this, that your win condition totally changes. While 4K is still super nice, what you really want to do is make sure that no survivor escapes with their items. That's the true victory behind this build. Or if you can get a survivor super salty about it, that's a victory in my book. Catching survivors out of place like this will happen a lot when running Iridescent Button, as the massive terror radius can sometimes make survivors question how close you are to them, or if it's just your power and there's no danger. I'm trying to use my power speed from Frenzy to get in front of Nancy before I go on cooldown. You'll see me do this a lot in my games because if I can get in front of the survivor and body block them when I'm going on cooldown, I minimize the distance they can gain and I can possibly force them into a bad position. Pallets like this are only useful if you can stun the killer or make them miss you so you can start gaining distance again. The Dead Hard bought her a few extra seconds, sure, but she would have been better off if she had Dead Harded into the vault on the stairs that she was near at the time. Survivors tend to have a hard time letting go of a gen that they had started and gotten decent progress, if not a lot of progress on. This makes it for easy guesswork if you don't have any other information tools to rely on. Another great benefit of Iridescent Button is that you can break every pallet that you vault over during your Frenzy. This can save you an immense amount of time during a chase. While hitting injured survivors with my Frenzy doesn't help me in the sense of getting downs, it does help me in stalling due to the survivors needing to mend before they can do any other actions. Because if they don't mend in that time frame, then they will go into the dying state. So can I just take a moment and say how awesome the skin is and bring my boy Springtrap into the game? Let's go. Also, we need more killer cosmetics to start coming with some newer voices and sounds to really amplify the experience, especially since we can't really see our skins in game. Using Frenzy to get to a gen is serving me two purposes. One, it's simply getting me there faster, and the other is that it's going to trigger my global terror radius with the iridescent button and make survivors panic a little bit. You really have to keep up with leg day, especially if you don't have any real slowdown perks like Ruin or Pop Goes the Weasel. Well, she messed that up pretty bad, but I'll take my free downs where I can. With running Discordance 3, I have to keep 12-second intervals in my mind, and every time Discordance goes off, it's been 12 seconds that 2 or more survivors have been on a gen. And after the third proc of Discordance, the gen will be nearly finished, so I have to make sure to be there pretty hastily after a hook. I enjoy Discordance 3 better than Discordance 1 as it's easier for me to keep tracks on, and since killers multitask all the time, it's great to keep things as simple as possible. But if you enjoy Discordance 1, just keep in mind it's about 5 pops before a generator is completed by 2 survivors compared to 3. This knowledge actually is what allowed me to stop this gen from being completed now, but of course don't forget that we put in a little work here as well. You know, this is actually why I'm on the fence to say that Discordance is a very underrated perk. The amount of information you actually receive from this perk alone can be quite a game changer. Remember, 2 survivors finish a gen in 44 seconds compared to a single survivor finishing a gen in 80 seconds. That gap is massive. So as killers, we have to do our best to keep survivors from freely pairing up on gens, and Discordance is hands down the best tool for helping with that. I'm actually going to eat the DS here because my power is almost off a cooldown, which means I'll be able to use Claudette as a beacon for my power to locate the other survivors. Going for a stab here is actually a mistake, as I could have just started my cooldown instead and potentially got a much quicker down. When we are talking about cooldowns though, don't forget you can actually go on your cooldown with Legion as you're falling. This will save you a lot of time and distance on maps that have falls. This is what happens when you don't keep a killer honest or you run away from a dropped pallet as soon as possible instead of playing around it. By keeping honest, I mean by making sure the killer is breaking the pallet before moving on. Getting faked out is a great way to getting yourself downed. Notice the blood. People often ask me for tips on tracking, and my #1 visual tip is training your eyes to be on the lookout for blood, as it's a much better representation on how far a survivor is from you and isn't as misleading as scratch marks. Though I'm still planning on going through a more in-depth tracking video, I'm definitely thinking of doing it on stream unless I get great footage examples for you guys in the nearby future. I don't recommend using Frenzy to break pallets out of chase, but if you have a good idea on where the survivors are, why not go ahead and get 2 birds with 1 stone. Coming out of Frenzy here was a total misclick, since I have large hands and sometimes they decide to just spasm out for no reason and press buttons. The play in mind and to make was actually to use the remaining Frenzy time to stop the free unhook. And that is 100% what you get for picking up the item. When this build is active, you punch any players in the game that are with items. Again, gens mean nothing, it's the items we want, because we're greedy little gearheads. Now that's 2 survivors remaining, they pretty much go directly into hiding, and it took a solid minute before I actually find a survivor on a generator again. So I am going to skip to that point. Here's the point where everybody be like, Red, what are you doing? Use your power for that fat information on the last survivor. But like I've said before, I need all the items, and I damn well will get them. So I make sure to get my basic M1 before a frenzy, just in case. She's playing the loop pretty well, so I'm definitely going to have to frenzy here and go ahead and break chase to find the other survivor who's most likely on a generator. She has picked up that medkit so many times this game, it will be a great sense of joy to me to make her lose it permanently after this chase, as it is her last hook. Having broken all the pallets in this area, it's only a matter of time before I have her head. No more medkit for you, my sweet Nancy gamer. Now it just comes down to the last two. Will I find her before she finds the hatch, or will she make it out with what could be worse, and could she have possibly retrieved her item and make it out with it? After searching the side for a bit, I have a super bad hunch that the hatch must be in the killer shack, and it's very possible she's on her way, if not there already. The amount of feels bad is heavy today. The chat went on for a while and it was all good fun overall, though the question we all want to know is, did she make it out with her item? And I'm proud to state that she'll be heading back to that eternal fire empty-handed. But that's it for today's video, and I hope you all enjoyed it. Feel free to test out the build in your games and let me know about them in the comment section below. Also, if you have a memey build that you find a lot of fun, let me know as well, and I might just have to try it out. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and a subscribe. I hope you steal all survivors' precious items in your future games, and until next time, I'm Red, and I'm signing off. Come on.